Alright, so we've got to build the carriage for this cannon. I've selected to use some true stock 1.5 by 5.5 inch red oak. That's an old plank that I've had for a while. It's really good solid lumber. It's very clear, free of a lot of imperfections. So I've got it cut into 2 pieces. These are going to be the sides for the cannon. We need to figure out a way to affix the trunnions to the top. So I tried to keep it somewhat simple, stupid. I'm going to glue these 2 together and cut them out. This is just spray adhesive. It will release. A little blue tape. Okay, these 2 are as one. Edges are pretty true all the way down. And what I want to do is measure 1.5 and 1.5 inches. This is nothing more than kind of visual for me. Connect the dots. All right, there we go. All right, so I've got my rip fence set up on the table saw 1.5 inches off. This is going to take a double cut. I don't have the height to cut through both of these. The blade is not set all the way up, but getting it all the way up in the air doesn't really net me anything. I still have to flip it over and cut it again, so just for safety it keeps it down below the top of the rip fence. All right, the parts that we glued together, we cut in half. Now I have them clamped together because I want to drill a hole and I want to be a consistent hole all the way through. That's for the bushing. This is a small bushing I turned for the trunnion. It'll sit inside here. We need a 1-inch hole, so I'm going to use a 1-inch Forstner bit and get it in the drill press, and we're going to drill straight through all the pieces at one time, hopefully. If not, at least get partway through the second piece so I can separate them and then finish the hole. That'll be for this trunnion bushing to sit inside. All right, so here's where we are. We got the 2 pieces that we cut in half, and then we drilled a hole all the way through them. And what that allowed us to do is to be able to put a bushing for the trunnion right in here. We're gonna drill a series of holes in here. Those holes are gonna be for lag bolts, to lag bolt this piece in once the cannon's in place, and then we'll clearance hole these because we don't want any actual thread in the top part. Once I do that, I've already kind of traced out a pattern here. And this is how I want the back of it to look. I'm going to follow this line. So what I'm going to do is take it over to my little bandsaw and trim out that piece, take it over to the belt sander, make a shape, and then lay one on top of the other, transfer that shape over, and get it so that both those shapes match. What we've done here, I've done this off camera, is I've taken these pieces we've cut out. Here's our trunnion bushing. We've drilled them and put our lag bolts in here. And we've put a piece of stainless steel flat bar. I've bent it around there. I'm going to show you how I did that. And the purpose of this is to reinforce from the shock the lumber. I really don't think there's an issue, but it also kind of looks decorative at the same time. So here's our trunnion mount, and the trunnion bushing goes in there like that. This goes on there like that. Now we have to locate these 3 holes in this piece of material. This piece of material is a 3/16 stainless sheet. I just had it sheared to 1.5 inches. This is 1 3/4, so it gives room to put a nice rounded edge on here. We need to locate these 3 holes in here, and there's about a half a dozen different ways to do it. Here's how I did it. It was pretty simple. Keep it simple, stupid method. I just centered this board on the piece of material. This is a 3/8 drill bit. This is the clearance size hole. And I just spun it a few times for each hole, making sure I didn't let this move. And I got 3 holes marked 1, 2, 3, and I can circle them. 1, 2, 3. I'll go in there to the drill press and I'll press out all the holes in the drill press. It'll be a whole lot easier. Here's what I did. I drilled the holes, put the piece of flat bar around it, and I just took a little bit of handwork, you know, something that most married men are good at, and just worked the metal around to the shape, and I used this just like a buck and shaped it around it. Now all I'm going to do is take a pencil or a Sharpie if I had one in my pocket, but it's on the workbench in there. And I mark that. I'll take the screws back out of it. I'll take it over to the bandsaw, cut it off to length, and then this has got a little bit of a spring in it. I'll poke a small hole here, countersink both the front and the back, and that will have a screw that'll pull those down, keep those nice and snug there. And then I'll take this over and run it over the flap wheel and flap it out and give it a nice finish like this. We're going to take these pieces and put them on a center beam for the cannon carriage. And I need to affix some wood screws to aid the glue in holding this together, because we're going to glue it and then we'll put the wood screws in it too. So what I want to do is hide those screws the best I can. And the way I usually do that is I use a Forstner bit. Never seen a Forstner bit. They cut a clean flat bottom hole in wood. So I'm going to use a Forstner bit. I'm going to put 3 holes in here, and then I'm going to go get a plug cutter that I have and get a scrap piece of this wood, and I'll cut 6 plugs. This is a little cut off piece off the end there, so it's the exact same species wood. And here's the plug cutter. They're pretty inexpensive. Here's how they work. You just take a screwdriver and it'll break off in there. You just work it a little bit. If you've seen this before, sorry to bore you, but a lot of people never seen how to do plugs. A little tip for getting this to look the best it can is, if you are putting it in the end grain, try to cut the end grain. I've seen people try to cut it this way before, and then it looks goofy. So now you've got a plug. It's the same species, and if you look carefully, you can see the grain. So if you're real careful, just glue this back in place once the screw's in there. When the glue dries, you can just cut it off with a hacksaw blade, a flush cut saw, whatever you've got, and then just take the sander and run the sander over it. You'll have a plug that as closely matches as possible. So I've got to cut 6 plugs. Now, the next step for us, there's a center piece that goes down and sits down on the ground for the cannon. We got to cut that to length. So I've got to do a little figuring, figure out how long I want to make that. So I'll come back to you in a couple minutes. Okay, well, we are finally ready to glue this monster together. The only thing really left to do is to put a little bit of glue. Actually, probably the correct thing to say here is a fairly liberal amount of glue. Spread it nice and evenly. And then we'll just use our holes that we pre-drilled to get everything lined up in the right position. This side, rinse and repeat. All right, now it's for the moment of truth. There it is. There's our tilt for aiming. This will go on here. This will go on here. This will go on top of there. I have another one somewhere else. It's hiding on the workbench somewhere. Go on this side. I'm liking it. So I started to build the axle here, and it's really simple. This is just a piece of 1-inch square tube with a 1/2-inch bolt that just happens to be the right length for the wheel hub on there. I just did not have to modify the bolt at all. The bolt head fit in there snugly. I welded it all the way around. This is cut to the right length. I marked here where the carriage rides underneath, and I've made a couple of small tabs. These have holes drilled under the clamps, you can't see them, where this will just bolt underneath. Just a very simple axle. Wheels will ride right here. What I need to do is tack all this up in place, then turn it over and complete the welds. So I wanted to bring you in close for that. All right, that's not going anywhere. So this will bolt up underneath there. We'll hit these real quick. Put a little doodleberry on them. I'll do that off camera. Put some fresh coat of black paint on that. Get us all squared away. All right, so we've got the carriage turned over. This is the axle that I welded earlier. I put the little black paint on it, and it's looking pretty nice. What we're gonna do here is I want the axle to be right over where the trunnions are. That'll make it heavy in the rear, but not too heavy, and all of the load is carried right through the trunnion, which is right underneath here, straight through. So just using my square to make sure I get the axle parallel with the chassis. That's pretty close. I'm gonna pre-drill a couple of holes. Now right now, this is all I have, some drywall screws. I'm gonna get some proper lags here, but I need to do some fit up work. So I'm going to use these. Now, we'll turn that over. Boy, now for the tough part. Whew. We got our first look at the cannon.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw here today. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and like us on Facebook. Please, somewhere down below here is a link. We've got a lot more really cool stuff coming. Is that right, camera guy? Is there a link down there? Send me a comment. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Click whatever link, click something. See you soon.